Welcome to the AI Lab Unfiltered podcast, where we take a deep dive into everything AI. I am Drew Veach from BizStream. I am joined by Mr. Pete Tarrant from New Wave.
Good morning.
We have a great show today. We got a great episode. We got a really fun person to talk to, something completely different than what we've talked to before. And this is Sonny Lee, the CEO and founder from Holisticare. How's your morning?
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We're going to talk about the art of productization. Now, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about how AI fits into that. And Sonny, you have an enormous amount of experience spanning multiple industries. That's why we're very excited to get you on here.
Thank you.
We want to understand a little bit more about how AI plays a role in productization and kind of bringing those market needs to light and how it speeds it up, how it really interlaces with that.
That's a very good question. So, AI was there for long, and then especially in the manufacturing industry, we were trying to use it for almost over a decade right now. At first, there was some hypes, obviously, and then there was some skepticism, but I believe a lot of leaders, especially the AI savvy leaders in the manufacturing industry, understand now what works better, what works, what requires some more efforts. In terms of using AI for your product, there are two ways only, basically. One is to create a new product to increase your revenue. And then the other is basically improve your operational excellence, and then you lower your cost and then bring more profit for your customers and shareholders. Yeah, those are major two ways. And then a lot of large enterprises are trying both sides. And then we found that operational excellence might work better simply because you can put that into your own existing process. And then finding a new business is a little bit more challenging because it requires basically expanding into the adjacent area.
So because we're such in the infant stage of AI in doing this, really the tip of the iceberg at this point, from the traditional methods to now using AI incorporated with that, where do you see the biggest advantage to where this was the biggest ROI point we had? And you've got industry experience as far as when you talk manufacturing, automotive, healthcare. You span multiple facets. In
Right.
that automotive space, where did you see that big aha moment?
Well, it's very interesting question, and then thank you for asking that. I'm most excited about the way that we can utilize the software much more in every industry because when I was helping our customers in automotive industry with our Vision AI software, Strad Vision, the biggest challenge that we are facing, even though we deliver our software, our customers didn't have enough software engineers who can use that and then embed it into their system. But thanks to a lot of AI tools right now, the bar to become an software engineers or the bar to use the software embedded into your product lines or your product design and all the work process is much, much easier. So I'm telling to all of my exec friends that, just to use more and more tools to bring more software into your existing workflow simply because it's so easy to define how to use the AI tools and softwares, using no code tools, even non-engineers to learn about it and then find a way to use it. I'm very excited about it. It was my business idea last 2 years ago, and then now I feel like I don't need to do that because already you have so many tools out there.
Sure. Yeah. 2 years is a generation apart of where
Yeah.
we started.
Yeah, even before the OpenAI came out.
So that's interesting. So really what I heard you say is you had this great product, but it was almost too it was too difficult for them to implement because they weren't able to really receive that product and weave it into their product. So now with these tools, if they were deficient in writing code, now with these, you're essentially lifting everyone up to a level where they can now start to integrate that tool. That is really cool. I can definitely see the benefit there.
Mm-hmm.
Right, right. Yeah, before the way that we were thinking is to hire junior software engineer and then pair them with the subject matter expert within the organization and then teach them how it works and then tell them how to, I mean, basically generate some ideas of how to create a software or like a tool, right? But now you don't even need to have a junior software engineer, but you can use a tool and then the subject matter expert can create anything that they wish. And then they are so empowered and excited of all these changes. So I think that's the biggest challenge. I'm sorry, biggest impact or influences by all these tools and generative AI.
I would think you'd that's really cool because now the subject matter expert, because things get lost in translation. So if they're working with a developer and they're trying
Hmm.
to get their idea across, that developer, we've all worked with developers, and you think you're telling them like this great, very verbose, very specific thing that you need, and then what you get back is doesn't always look like what you had in your head. But if you're
Right,
able to
right.
do that code yourself, you don't have to translate that to that
Right.
developer. Now,
No,
what is in your
correct.
head is actually going to happen because you're the one who's writing the code. Like that to me just seems like for that subject matter expert, their experience has now really elevated. They're getting more of what they
Hmm.
had in their head. That's awesome.
Well, and does that
Yeah.
change the talent stream too,
Hmm.
on top of that, to where you don't have 5 people in this chain to build this product? Now you have two,
Yeah.
because AI does speed
Right.
that up, where I don't have to translate it to you, which then you have to bring it back to a team to then do, and then bring it back to me. It eliminates a lot of that.
So
I
much.
hate to say it probably eliminates a lot of people at that point,
Well,
Right.
I,
or has the possibility. I
that
should
thought
say.
popped into my head too. The other way to look at that would be, okay, well, now that developer can go work on something
Right,
else.
right.
Because
Hmm.
maybe there are subject matter experts that won't be able to adopt that, and they still need the help of a developer. But do you have more throughput now because that subject matter expert can operate on their own, and now this programmer can go work with somebody else? So you're actually increasing your throughput maybe at that point.
Yeah, yeah.
Right, exactly. And then the challenge that I faced when I was working with the project managers or engineers was I do not know what I do not know, right? So sometimes they ask me a question and I answered, and then I gave them a document, and then like a month later, they brought me a product, and then it's different from what I thought. And then he explained to me that the way that I explained what I want as a product or functions, features, and then the way that he received as a product feature was slightly different. But in a software, that slight difference makes big changes. And then extremely difficult to go back to the months
Yeah,
ago
yeah.
when I was answering to the question and then define the features together, right? So I really believe the AI tools will eliminate a lot of these misconception or misunderstanding between the subject matter experts and the software engineers. And then that's fascinating to see.
Yeah. So you were talking about operational excellence, and clearly that's
Hmm.
one example because you've just streamlined a process. Your idea to implementation, that chain, to your point, Drew, is shortened. Do you have other examples where AI has helped operational flows? And would love to, because think in our audience we do have business owners or we have
Hmm.
production managers, and they'd love to hear these examples and say, "Oh, that's a great idea." So
Yeah.
if you have more examples of that, our audience would love to hear those.
Well, it's not necessarily AI, but Zapier or NA10. Those automation tools are great. So I would suggest you start with the very simple automation tools. My case, I was managing a community, and then every time somebody wants to join the WhatsApp, community, I had to manually add the person to their community. But now, once anyone basically submit their intake, then I can make it automated, and then I just confirm it, and the person is already in the community. It's very easy. That's a very simple one. And then marketing is also the other area. But what makes me most excited about, especially in the healthcare space, is data interoperability.
Okay.
The challenge was the scattered data, and then every system, even the Epic system, made a great, standard and everything. But there is a long tail of EHR system, and then all the system of different data formats and everything. Now people are finding a way to use LLM to basically orchestrate the different data sets and then make it more smooth, and then the flow is very smooth right now. So that's one area that we can use the AI in a very smart way, because the AI can understand the context, not fully, but at least some patterns, and then syndicate the information and then make it a little more comprehensible information to human beings. So that's the biggest area that I see.
Do you have, obviously not sharing any client names or anything like that, but do you have an example where multiple data sources have been pulled together for a client and you used AI to aggregate that data and have it make more sense? I like your term for humans, make it make more sense for humans.
Yeah, I mean, right now it's really easy. Any JSON files, you just or like Excel files or text files. Right, my case, a CSV file and Word documents, and then page files. All files basically, I just throw that into the Chat GPT, and then ask to explain me what it means, and then summarize it. That's great, And sometimes I just ask what I'm missing, then it can even point out what I have not asked but should have asked. Right. That's the biggest point, I think.
Yeah. Uh, that is, data is such an issue
Yeah.
for so many companies and
Yeah,
so many people. And I
data
just,
cleaning, normalization, right?
yeah, I had dinner with a friend last night, and we worked for the same company, and both for a long time. And so we saw the company build over the years. And you start with this idea that we're going to have this unified data set, but inevitably, you do some acquisitions, and then you've got their databases, and all of a sudden, data is just everywhere, and you can't. It's been very difficult in the past to bring that together, and AI is this great promise of being able to aggregate that and
Right.
to pull that together.
Get rid of the duplicative
Yeah.
information in there, streamline it, yeah,
Yep.
or enrich it. At
Oh
that
yeah,
point.
even better. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious whether the ERP system can utilize AI somehow, because that was the biggest challenge when I was working for the bigger companies. When we acquire a company or try to use a vendor using different systems, then basically how we can connect those companies' data into the system. And especially if these companies are not software native products, like providers and just hardware manufacturers, or those people, they use very conventional IT system, and then those people are good, but not necessarily know how to create API and then make it much easier to communicate to one another. And then in the case, hopefully AI can be a middleman between two systems and then orchestrate it
Yeah.
in a much smoother way. Yeah.
If, if I want to pose a scenario to you, Sonny, and ask you to answer it. So let's imagine there's somebody listening to the podcast right now. They're, president of a company or CEO, and they said, okay, Sonny has inspired me. I want to, implement AI into my operational workflow. I think most people are now to a point where they understand that AI can help me, but they don't
Mm-hmm.
know, like, how do I start? Where is the starting point? So could you kind of talk through what success you've had and what that workflow might look like in evaluating a process, or even like where do people start?
Oh, that's very complicated, big question. Yeah, but if I were any executives with the big companies, um, but very important thing that you need to keep in your mind is that you really need to align the usage of AI with your product and business strategy, and then um, start with the small but simple application use cases where you have data, and then it is a very tedious job. So, and especially where you cannot get a lot of human resources to do it, simply because of many challenging supplies of the humans, and labors. And then set the KPI very clearly. What is the target that you want to achieve through the AI? Either you want to reduce the time of the workflow, or you want to basically manage the big data or whatever. But a very important thing is that I found the KPI, the user of the AI tool, and then the producer of data should be aligned. because big companies, the biggest challenge is that the users and then of the AI tool, and then the data to train those AI tool, the producer of those data might not be aligned, and then oftentimes it's managed by two different executives, and then even worse, those two executives are like competitors for their next position, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it is actually much more organizational challenges than technical challenges. So it is important for you to find where you can manage data and then the AI performance together. That's an easier way to make a small but meaningful success using AI. And once people see the result, then especially thanks to this hype and everything, the key decision makers may start to think how they can use the same, tools and then methodologies or even partners for their own business goal. But it is very important to have both, like a user and data producers on the same page and then work together.
And yeah, and then you start to kind of get that snowball effect. You get a couple small
Right,
wins, and then people
exactly.
start, buying in, and then yeah, it
Yeah,
starts to go. Yeah,
right. But I believe more than one third of the effort so far, even before this hype started, were not necessarily very successful because, for my case, when we started, we wanted to have a very smart factory, and then I learned from my colleagues that they actually write down all the knowledge on a note. So it was not even digitized. So you need to
Oh,
start with
wow.
the digitization
yeah.
of all their knowledge and then make it as digital knowledge and then find a way to organize all this data, clean up all this data as a meaningful, either ground truths or test data or training data sets, and then use it, right? So that's what happens within a lot of organizations. They do not realize it starts with these ties data. So
Talk to me about like the stakeholder alignment of this, because you
mm,
mentioned, having the user base, having the engineer, like all these people are talking to each other, but then
mm.
there's that level above it, that
Right,
executive
Yeah.
level, that leadership
right.
level where obviously they're going to be more focused I mean, everybody's focused on ROI, but what kind of challenges are you faced with that trying to implement something using AI
Mm,
into your
mhm.
product where they're just not lining up, or maybe they are and they're driving it? Like, what's your experience with that?
Oh my goodness, this is more like a bureaucrat, like a political,
Yeah.
how to basically
I
leverage
want
the
names. I want names of everybody.
not like AI at all. But I mean, what I found interesting is that you basically need to leverage the dynamics within the organizations, right? Because you see some competitions. I mean, in positive ways, competitions among different, very talented people to bring better values for the company, and also there's some kind of emotional, dynamics as well. And then, so important thing is to understand the dynamics and then leverage that. So one thing that you need to do if you are not the decision maker yourself yet, or you need the champion, then you need to find a champion or sponsor for the project. Again, along the line, like users and then data producers and then budget people and then like resources, talents, and everything, right? So basically, you need all these four components: data, human beings, or the talents, or I should say partners, or money to use them, and also
Hmm.
users. So you need to define these four categories within your organization, and then basically make a table: who is on your side, who is gonna be your potential challenging person, right, for different reasons. And then it's not necessarily because of political reasons, but simply because they have different assumptions, or they
Yeah.
have different knowledges, right, or they have different theories. And then it is very important to understand why they are challenging this initiative, because they always have reasons. I mean, if you are working for a decent company and then dealing with the decent executives, all of them are very capable, right? And then very much committed for the success of the company and aligned with the strategy. So oftentimes I found that it is because either they are not informed, or two, they have different assumptions from me. So if it's not, if it's about information, it's easy, right? You just find a way to provide that information to the person for educational purposes. But if it is more about different assumption, which you cannot verify yet, right? That is the biggest challenge, and that's the hurdle that you need to get over. Sometimes I leverage the above person, like my CEO or CTO, or sometimes I basically laid it out with the person very clearly. Your assumption is like this, my assumption is like this, and this is the way that we can verify. We do not know
Yeah.
you're right or I'm right? But we should work together to verify that. Yeah, very typical playbooks, how to manage executives within a big company. It works same here.
Yeah. And yeah, versus avoiding them in the hallway every day until you,
Yeah, one time I was standing, when I was a junior, I was standing in front of the SVP's office for an hour
oh,
waiting for him to come out.
wow.
Yeah. So there are many ways, but well, it's a, yeah, I agree. If they decide to shut their mind down, then there's not many things that you can do. But now is a good time because
Right.
they cannot say that I'm not AI savvy, right? They want to prove that they understand enough, and then try really hard to learn, right? So it's a really good time to leverage that and then
And
basically learn together.
I definitely think, obviously, security aside of everything,
Mm-hmm.
we are, I think, I hope at least we're in that time frame of it's been around long enough and people are recognizing it going, this isn't going away. We have to do
Mm-hmm.
something with us. And like you said, they
Yeah.
might not know what to do with it or how to do with it,
Mm-hmm,
but at
mm-hmm.
least it's on their mind of, yeah, we got to do something with us. We can't just
Yeah,
ignore it
exactly. Peer
because
pressure
you will
and
be left
everything.
behind,
Totally.
you know?
Right. So I recommend the AI Savvy Leaderboard by HBS, I believe. That is very comprehensive approaches, and then basically covers every topics that you needed to understand as a leader of big companies. And once you have that mindset, like I'm AI savvy leader, so I want to basically find a way to use AI in
Sure.
a right way for my company and for my team. I'm sure that you will find different ways, and then it's very early stage. Nobody is right yet. Nobody can prove that you're right yet. So you just try your own way, and then who knows, you might be better than other people. So that's how I basically encourage my executive friends to start with. You know.
Makes sense.
Some of the challenges for implementation that you were talking about would be a challenge even if it wasn't AI, because there's going to be difficult
Right.
people everywhere. But have you seen in the work that you've been doing where the resistance is specific to it being
Mm,
AI, where because there are tons of surveys out there where people are saying that they're worried about AI taking their job or, things like that.
mm,
Legitimate fears because we're so early into this, who
Right.
knows where this is going to turn out. But have you run into
hmm
resistance that's specific to it being AI?
Yeah, especially the subject matter experts who used to work in a IT and AI field for a while. Because it's not the first hype that we are seeing, right? We have seen many hypes along the way, right?
Hmm.
So they feel like it might be high or it might real thing. Who knows the type of approaches. Um, yeah, so I actually see that from some of that, and then bigger challenges. Here the garbage in, garbage out rules work really well.
Yep.
So if you do not have good non-biased data, it's very difficult. And then I had a very interesting conversation yesterday with my friend in healthcare. She was explaining me the biggest challenge adopting AI in healthcare is basically there is no absolute ground truth in healthcare because as you may know, with the same, imaging or blood work data, each doctor might have different opinions what it means, right? It's different from the autonomous driving. Autonomous driving is very clear whether the action or planning result that AI basically suggests is right or not. Human being can make a decision, yes or no, very clearly. But in healthcare, even doctors have different opinions, and then we do not know what we do not know yet about our body and everything. That makes the biggest challenges in adopting AI, because you cannot basically conclude who is right and then what is the right, or we cannot measure how accurate the AI tool is because we do not have absolute ground truth data. So, well, that made me think a lot how we can bring the AI into the healthcare. But that means we can just consider AI's opinion as one of the doctor's opinion, right?
Yep.
That's the
Hmm.
wiser way instead of we just trust it. And then basically put it more like a sounding board to give me new perspective as my doctor colleagues, right? So instead of it's going to replace a doctor, we have another doctor or second opinions at a very low cost. And then, just to verify or double check um, one doctor's opinions or diagnosis result and everything. So, yeah, but absolutely. And then again, I mean, I do not blame them, right? They might point out
Right.
right thing, especially about diversities and opinions. I mean, we have the data, right? OpenAI ChatGPT basically recommend women workers to suggest their appropriate compensation level much lower than the male workers, simply because all the salary data that they get trained was basically showing the same, stats, right? So AI is more like exaggerating the bias and the information that we already have instead of unbiased stats. So we basically needed to use it in a wiser way.
It, yeah, I mean that's going to be that problem is going to take a long time to solve, and
Mm-hmm.
that's where I think this AI thing is not going to happen tomorrow, where it starts
Right.
taking over because of exactly what you're talking about. There is no, in a lot of fields, there's no universal truth. So until
Mm-hmm.
people can decide, like we're in the computer industry, you
Mm-hmm.
you can fix a computer the same way every time if they're all built the same, but humans are not
Mm-hmm.
built the same.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
So yeah,
Exactly.
it is different.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
you were you were yeah. I'm kind of stuck on that because that's a big thing. I want to
That's
go
a
back
big
to
thing.
what you were talking about with the doctor example and the second
Mm-hmm.
opinion. Like I think I actually love that, and I know you're familiar with the term human in the loop. Like I think
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
at least for my generation, our kids, I think it could be different because they're going to grow up with AI. But I think for as long as I'm going to live, still going to want a human doctor to be a part of my
Yeah,
medical
sure.
journey. Do I want that doctor to consult an AI? Absolutely. But I
Of
still want
course.
that doctor, at least in the foreseeable future, to
Make the
be,
final
a
call,
part of
right?
Yeah.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. I really agree on that. Well, and then it's very interesting. Can you guess which state is much more aggressive in adopting autonomous driving
I would
other than
say,
California?
I'd say,
Other
Yeah.
than California.
uh,
Yeah.
Michigan is the birthplace of the
Oh,
automobile,
no,
right?
It is not
unfortunately.
Michigan.
Dang
They're
it.
actually against, not against, but kind of slow, Florida. And then you know why?
I had that in the back of my head.
Elderly
I was
drivers.
gonna say Kentucky,
Yes,
but
exactly. Because they need mobility, but they sometimes it causes a lot of traffic, accidents and everything, right? And then they really want to encourage people to use more convenient public transportation. And existing system, especially it's very spread out, right? So existing system, like human drivers have the set route among different houses. It doesn't make sense at all for many reasons. But if you have autonomous driving with on-demand, call capability, then it can solve a lot of issues. So what I'm trying to say is that there are certain areas where human beings do not prepare to do the job, or economically it doesn't make sense. Then we can basically put AI to automate it or like do it instead of actually human labor do that. And then just to put the one very important person in the loop to basically make sure everything goes well until we are 100% sure about it. Yeah, then it would work. So I believe eventually it's gonna go to that way. So at first, autonomous driving, we were very much hooked by the robot taxi and the idea
yeah.
and everything, right? But actually, it proved that if you use it, transportation of goods, not human beings. So trucks and then logistics. That actually works a lot better, especially from warehouse to warehouse close to the highway, because it's simpler application, and then you do not want to truck drivers to drive it for 24 hours, right?
Right.
But basically autonomous driving can drive it, like can move the goods nonstop, right?
Yeah.
So those areas we started, and then that helps the whole how to say whole technology stack will be developed to the maturity level that we really need. And then we can basically expand that product idea into the adjacent areas or adjacent applications to make it much more adopted by the a little more gray area first, and then completely replace some more useful applications. So yeah, and Waymo started with the blind people, right?
Oh,
Because they need some
yeah.
mobility, and then they need the transportation, but they cannot drive themselves. So they used Waymo to move somewhere on their own, basically without any caregiver. And then it was very successful. And then they have very, very strong needs. So it is important to find a group of users who are willing to adopt new technology, because that compensate their disadvantages somehow, and then basically build your maturity technology within that area and expand it into the adjacent area. That's the best way to use deep tech as a product.
Interesting.
Yeah.
There are many interesting things.
Yeah. Well, you have a very interesting background. You have the coolest work history. And we've
Thank you.
mentioned the vision component
Yeah.
of automated driving just a little bit here, but you spent a lot of time in that field. And
Yeah,
we talked, so the
I
three of
was
us
lucky.
talked, it was a couple of weeks ago, just kind of a pre-meet to, get to meet you. And we talked a little bit about that. I don't know if we want to go there today, but we talked a little bit about that decision making that the autonomous vehicle is driving. What if
hmm
and how we talked a little bit about world models and how that helps train it. Do we want to dive into
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. Let's definitely talk
Okay,
about that.
cool.
Yeah, yeah.
I know you
Fun
wanted
topic.
to.
I know. I
Fun
really
topic,
want
right?
to. I know,
Yeah, a lot of
Drew.
Michiganders might, might like to hear that.
So you worked. You've had spent time in the automotive industry, and part of that was using developing vision models for autonomous driving. And so
Correct.
the two things that interest me the most, because this is all about me and what I want to talk about, is, AI is going to have to make a decision if, somebody pushes a stroller out in the road in front of a car, or, maybe a better example, a deer runs out in front of a car, but there's somebody on the sidewalk over here. Do you swerve around it? Can you talk about the challenges of how do you train a model to make the right decision, and what value does it put on certain things? A human is clearly more valuable than a tree, so you'd rather hit the tree than the person.
Oh,
Like,
that is a very complicated decision. Okay, that's an interesting question. Yeah, but I mean, before going that very complicated, it's more like justice decision, right?
yeah,
By the Harvard professor. But before going that, the very interesting cases that I heard from the CEO of Jukes was, they have a biker in front of their car, for whatever reasons, wearing a clothes with the cone shape on the back. So, so the car was confused because it looks like a cone and then it's moving,
oh yeah,
Oh,
right? So
geez.
that type
Yeah.
of thing. Or oftentimes, these autobike people or like carriers, they carry the cones on behind of them, right? Then it's basically confusing. So those type of cases, so we call it as an edge cases, right? And then there are like tons of millions, 100 millions of cases that we cannot even imagine. And then how we are gonna basically make it as a some sort of decision, right? Even in perception, because the network or the AI should make a decision whether this is actually con or actually a person, right? That's the output that they need to bring out. Um, Oftentimes, we found that it is very useful if we use synthetic data, especially hybrid ways. So basically, instead of collecting the data, carrying cons behind over your bike yourself, you basically create that, overlay that into the existing data, and then train your network. Then actually you can make it pretty robust. And Waymo and Zoox or bigger companies, they are creating the virtual world and then use it for validation of their system for sure, and also try to find a way to use it to train your autonomous driving logics and driving policy and everything, which has not been proved very successful yet in over cases, but like in certain cases, it worked well. My company started to use traffic signboards to try as a hybrid synthetic data. So we collected all the road data and then put the signboards here and there randomly, and then start to use it. That's much easier way for us to use or generate the data to train the perception logic over real data. Yeah, so those are type of things that are interesting. And you're asking more about planning or driving policy type of things. But the vehicle has very simple, only three options. One is stop, two, continue to go, or three, push it to the human being yet, because you do not have level 4 or 5 for every cases, right? So we ended up having very robust human and machine interface area, because that is the decision point. The logic should understand when they should give an alert to the human being and then start working, so the human being can take over
Yeah.
the driving right away. So at this moment, it is more important to make that decision for many vehicle OEMs yet. But if you want to do the robot taxi in any situations, like nighttime, raining seasons, snowy times, then you really need to make sure high level of, accuracy for every cases, right? But right now the target is basically meeting the humans accident rates by the AI, not necessarily 100%. And then as you can see, when there's a frost, then we do not drive, right? We just stay back home. Same for the autonomous driving. You better just stay safe than, taking a risk to trust your machine would work perfectly, much better
Will
than human beings.
will
So
my car call my boss and tell him that I can't drive today because the road conditions are too bad? That'd be really helpful.
exactly.
Yeah.
Right. The same. It's not about human or autonomous driving, but it's about weather and it's about road conditions, especially the legacy systems that we are using, right?
Yeah.
So
And you're saying they're using AI to build like a simulator, if you will, to train that
Yeah,
model.
not necessarily AI, but basically it is combination of AI and all the software engineering to create the virtual world. And then we call it as a 3D map as a very simple version. And then also some driving scenarios, and then yeah, and then they basically run their software again and again and again in a many different situations to
Yeah.
validate.
I think about it
Because
like,
you cannot make up on accidents, right? So
right.
Exactly.
in the
You
real
would
world,
want to anyway.
you
Yeah.
know.
And eventually you can model all kinds of different accidents and you just keep building and building and the model
Yeah.
gets better for everybody.
Right.
But I think about it like a video game. Like in your, right now you can have a steering wheel in your video game and you can drive in the car, but then instead of me doing it, you have the AI drive through this video, Grand Theft Auto world, and it learns from that. If it makes it safely, then it's like, okay, that was
Maybe not necessarily Grand Theft Auto, but
I mean, sometimes you want to go a little faster, maybe have some fun.
Maybe you
Yeah.
can forward, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Like,
exactly.
twice or three times faster.
That scratched my itch. I really wanted to talk
I
about
knew you wanted to talk about that.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, that was an interesting area. But I mean, it's interesting because when you build the virtual world, there are two ways. One is that you basically build it in a very accurate way with all the ground truths embedded, right? Then you really need to use a very good sensor like LiDARs for every inch of streets even the driveways to your
Yeah.
house and everything, which is very expensive. So that's why they have a geofenced area to roll out their products. But at the same time, Tesla and some of other players are approaching in a very different ways because they have already the scale, right? And then they have cameras within their cars. So basically, what Tesla was doing is to collect all the vision data from their cameras and then basically find a way to build the virtual world using only that 2D camera sensors. So, which is great, and then crazy. And they can do it within a very, very short time. But as you can see, that involves with a very different technology, right? Because if you want to measure everything in an accurate way, sensor technology is more important. Right, so Waymo's patents are around the LiDAR sensors, but Tesla's way is we just want to use a lot of camera sensors, every Tesla cars over the world. Then your technology stack is different. Your technology should create the very accurate visual world from very low quality, to the image data. And that's very different to software stack. So they ended up having different technology stacks. And then I'm so curious which is gonna be the winner. And
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
right? So Elon
I,
Musk was telling us that even in Mars, he can build the autonomous driving. I mean, it should be easier at first because there's no car anyway and no
Yeah.
human beings on the road. Yeah, but that is a fascinating idea that in within a very short period of time, once they deploy the cars there, they can build the virtual world right there and then create all the work process to realize autonomous driving right there. So, yeah. It's
yeah.
it's a very different approaches and then very smart.
I was surprised because it was last year, I think I was reading Elon's biography and he was talking about how he made the decision to go strictly visual. He said, we're not going to
Hmm.
put LiDAR in the car. And at that point, I was all gung ho about a Tesla. And I'm like, hold on, I think I want LiDAR because vision
Right,
is
right.
vision and I get it. And I know obviously part of it's cost cutting. He wants to keep his cars, affordable for everybody.
Right.
But I think if there was could he have like a LiDAR add-on? I think I'd pay for
Hmm.
that. There's that extra redundancy, and I don't know.
Hmm.
I'd like to have that. Are there
Right.
are there
But I
other?
mean, people do not understand that it is not only the price of the LiDAR, but once you add a different set of new sensors in the vehicle, then you need to power
Mm,
Yep.
those sensors, and then you need a wire to connect it to hold the system, and then you basically need to split all the electricity flows and everything with those things. So it's a totally new concept, and then that's why Waymo took so long time to basically build everything the right way. Yeah, so it's not something like you just stick that in front
yeah,
of your
yeah. You don't
car
just plug in
and
your
then
LiDAR
buy
and go.
$1,000 and then put it, right? It's
Yeah.
not
Right.
like that, unfortunately.
No, that's good
Yeah,
insight. I didn't even consider any of that. That's why you do
right.
what you do, and I'm just
Yeah, and
sitting in
it's
here in this
funny because
podcast.
oh my gosh, this is so much fun. With the cameras, the technology that they were looking for is how to clean the camera lenses, while it's raining or with the mud and everything. And you may have that experience, right? Your cameras are covered with mud,
Yeah.
and it doesn't see anything, and then you're scared because now you need the to park, and then the camera is totally blocked, and then you do not see whether it's gonna work or not, right? So there was an interesting technology using electricity. It basically either dry out the water, evaporate the water drops, or suck it up into one side. So it basically clears out the sensors very
Wow.
easily. So there was interesting technology that they were
I would
looking
have
for, and
never
then
thought of that.
Yeah.
shopping
Never
around.
thought of that.
That's really cool.
Yeah, yeah, there
But
are
that
so
makes
many
sense.
interesting technologies out there to make very little thing perfectly because yeah, if we would have gas, the Modi is gonna basically block whole the autonomous driving
Yeah.
system,
Yeah.
right?
I would have had a little
So
windshield wiper that just went back.
yeah,
All
that's
right.
true.
We got to wrap this up. Sonny, it has been a pleasure talking to you. I
Same
know
here.
I was telling Pete about this. I said, oh my gosh, we could talk to her for hours based
Yeah.
on the first conversation we had.
Right.
Yeah.
We'd love to
Yeah,
have you on at some point again, and just
sure.
kind of catch
Sounds
up with
good.
you. But for now, tell everybody where they can find you.
Oh, sure. Yeah, that's a good point. So my company is Holisticare. So you can find me, you can email me at sunny@theholisticare.com, or you can find me on LinkedIn very easily. My LinkedIn is sun2 number 2 and Lee, Lee. So SUN number 2 and then Lee. That's the best place that you can reach out to me.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for
Thank
joining
you
our
so
show.
much.
Really appreciate
It was my
talking with you.
pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. If you like what you saw today on our podcast, please like and subscribe. And if you have any comments for us, drop a comment in the box below. Thanks, everybody.